Welcome back to the Soul Inspiring Business Podcast. Thank you for being here. And today I'm excited to share with you a great conversation, an empowering conversation with Betsy Pepine. She is a serial entrepreneur in the real estate space and author of the new book. You're going to have to check it out, Breaking Boxes, Dismantling the Metaphorical Boxes that Bind Us. Now, Betsy has been consistently recognized in the Wall Street Journal as one of the top producing teams, real estate teams in the US, and her brokerage has been named one of the Inc. 5000 fastest growing private companies in the US. She's even been endorsed by her mentor, real estate mogul, and you may know her on Shark Tank, Barbara Corcoran. On the surface, it seemed like Betsy had it all. And she did. She had checked all the boxes. And yet there was something within her that felt like and wondered, was this it? So she felt like she should be feeling more joy for where she was in her life, or like something was missing. And hence began this personal journey and pursuit of joy and her mission to help others that also may need to break a few metaphorical boxes as well to find more peace within. I'm thrilled to share this special convo with you, and it all starts now. I'm Kara, and welcome to Soul Inspiring Business. I believe that all of us possess unique gifts and talents that allow us to serve the world and our own growth in the highest possible way. Our lives are an expression of our thoughts, beliefs, and actions. And here, we will explore businesses, thought leaders, and topics designed to inspire, helping propel your own growth so you can live your best and most purposeful life. Welcome to Soul Inspiring Business. Well, you have just heard that impressive resume, and we are thrilled to have you with us today, Betsy. So thank you for being here on the podcast.
Oh, thank you, Kara. Love your show. So I appreciate you having me.
Oh, yes. Well, I have been really looking forward to talking to you because you have a new book coming out that I really wanted to dive into because it's not out there just yet, or actually by the time this show airs, it'll probably be live. But what you talk about is a lot in the book, and is a lot about some of the topics that we have on the show. So book called Breaking Boxes, Dismantling the Metaphorical Boxes that Bind Us. So before we dive in, I'd love to understand what prompted you to write the book. How did this come about?
Okay. So I'm in real estate like you. And I'm a broker of real estate, and I have a couple of other businesses as well. And I had been plugging along and the businesses were doing great. And I'm 55, and I was in my mid to late 40s at the time. And, on paper, my life looked great. And I had a great family. I had successful businesses. I live a debt-free life. I felt like I had checked all the boxes that would lead to a fulfilling life, but I wasn't feeling fulfilled. And I was frustrated that I wasn't feeling fulfilled. And it actually took me a couple of years to even admit it to myself, because I felt like I didn't have the right not to be fulfilled, because so many people have so many different experiences than and hardships that I don't face. And so I really struggled with that for a long time, just owning that my life isn't all, bed of roses that I had hoped it was. And how can I change it going into my second chapter? And so I began this journey. And when I was of exploration, and when I was going through a long process, which involved a lot of things, I came across a picture of this girl. I think I saw it, probably on Instagram or, something. And it's a picture of a girl. She looks like she's about 4 years old. She's in a one-piece bathing suit. Her arms and her legs are spread out as wide as can be, on her lush green grass in her front yard, rain pouring down on her. And her smile is this just pure, unbridled joy. And that, I was so drawn to that photo. And I was like, oh my gosh, I printed it out. I sent it to a canvas company. They put it on canvas for me. It's in my office. It's in my home office. It's my screensaver. It's on my phone saver, my phone saver. I have it everywhere. And about a year later, I live in Florida, and we have hurricanes in Florida, and we
Yeah.
were going down for a hurricane, and I always have a project during hurricane season because invariably the electricity goes out and you're kind of incapacitated for a little while. So I thought, okay, for this hurricane that was coming through, I had a project where I was going to put all these photos that I had accumulated in boxes into albums. And so sure enough, 2 hours into the hurricane, lights go out, electricity goes out. I light my candles and I start putting my photos in my photo albums. And when I'm done, I take my boxes, the empty boxes, to the trash can. And I noticed in the last box, there was a photo lying face down. So I pulled it out and I couldn't see it because it's dark. And so I took it over to a candle and looked at the photo. And I just froze. I was like, oh my gosh. Grabbed the candle, ran into my home office with my picture in my hand, and I put it up to this photo. And I look back at the photo in my hand and I see this picture of this girl in her favorite one piece red striped bathing suit. And she's in the water, and she's standing 3 feet in front of her father, who's taking her photo, and she's trying to plunge towards a wave as if to hug it. Pure unbridled joy on her face. And on the bottom of that photo, it was my mother's handwriting that said, Betsy, aged 4.
Wow.
And I was like, this is what I was missing in my life. Like, how did I lose my way? And how do I return to that, that joy that had escaped my life? And so I started journaling, I started meditating, I started doing yoga, I started going to therapy for the first time in my life. And it was just it was several years of understanding where I lost my way. And a common theme was this feeling that in various points in my life, I felt very confined by boxes that family of origin, religion, industry, gender, my roles as a mom, a daughter, a sister, and even myself. I put myself in boxes, and not all boxes are bad, and some boxes are good at certain periods of time in our life, but then we need to exit them. And I tended not to exit. I overstayed my welcome.
Right.
And
Right.
so the book is really stories about starting from when I was a little girl and when I first felt that, and my progression of recognizing, because at the beginning I didn't even recognize I was in a box. And then slowly I started to see, wait a minute, something's not right here. I'm not feeling right. What can I do about it? And so it's my journey of boxes, and the boxes I've been in, the boxes I'm still in, how I negotiated out of boxes. And then I wrote the book because I thought, oh my gosh, I'm an incessant reader. And I'm like, if I had read this book years ago, it would have helped me in my journey.
Wow. Wow. I was getting chills as you were talking. Excuse me, my throat. And I think that first when you started off and talking about, gosh, you have this life that everybody should, admire, right? But it's that idea that no matter what something looks like on the surface, it's really how it feels from within. It's coming into your own your own voice, your own, identity,
Mhm.
and the journey that it takes to get there.
Mhm.
And that um and that it's really, especially with social media and how much is out there now, we have a tendency to compare ourselves
Mhm.
to this idea of perfection that we see. And I think that almost sort of exemplifies
Mhm.
the feeling of, well, I can't feel this way because I have it all. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, I can't feel bad because other people have it worse.
Right.
But in fact, in truth, honoring how you're feeling so that you can feel into whatever the most expanded version of you is,
Mhm.
and that changes over time.
Mhm.
So that's really beautiful. And I guess in terms of in that self-discovery process and talk us through, because a lot of people, I think, intend to write a book or want to write a book, feel a book within. But
Mhm.
it's also another thing to actually write the book.
Mhm.
I'd love to understand what that process looked like for you. Because do you hear that? Everybody's like, oh, I wanted to write a book about this, right? But
Mhm.
then it's like, but not
Yeah,
everybody does it. So,
that's a good question, and it's funny because I'm in, and I'm sure you are too, but I'm in a lot of groups with people who are very successful, and a lot of people are writing books now. Everyone assumed I was writing a book about real estate. That would be the natural inclination. How do you build a team? How are you successful in real estate? How do you build a company? Because I'm known for real estate and entrepreneurship. And that wasn't the book I wanted to write because for me, and that was a box I got myself out of because even some of the people that were very influential in the book industry highly suggested I write a book that was a lead gen book for my business. And I'm like, no, that's not the purpose of this book at all. It's
right.
not to sell real estate. It's to help people who are on this journey that I am still. I mean, I'll be on this journey until I die. But so that in and of itself was something for me to overcome, not overcome, but just deal with, and
Mhm.
also because I wanted the book to be more like a challenge. Like if you wrote a book on how to do real estate, it probably wouldn't be challenging because you know how to sell real estate, you know how to build a business. We all
Right.
know how to do that. I wanted it to be something that challenged me creatively and emotionally. And I'm not somebody who, when you're in the public eye, you have a certain something that you have to present to the outer world. This is
Mhm.
being totally vulnerable, which really, when I literally probably waited 3 weeks to push the accept button on the manuscript because it just, I felt like I was naked, truly,
Mhm.
like literally naked because you're exposing a side of yourself that has never been exposed before. Um, so just really mentally overcoming that was hard.
Yeah.
But then in
And I
terms
relate a lot to what you're saying too. It's funny because same thing actually with this podcast. People are like, well, why don't you do a podcast about real estate? Why is it about, soul business, right?
yeah,
It doesn't make sense. They're not, and it's not lead generating. I'm like,
right.
well, but it's passion, it's joy, it's the idea that we're here to make a difference. And how can I lean in and make a difference?
Yeah.
And so I relate to so much of what you're saying. And also, when you're in a business, especially like real estate, that can be buttoned up and very, very professional, right? And that then you're opening yourself up to talking about things that our industry doesn't really, we don't always open ourselves up to
Mhm.
talk about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, I relate to so much of what you're saying, and I think that it's also to give to our listeners a um, the past to say, you don't have to put yourself in one box. There can be many versions of you. And I think that as we lean the way the world is moving to, it's really about authenticity, and people want to see the layers
Yes.
of you.
Yes.
And it gives them, to give permission to open yourself up and explore other parts of yourself that are not
Mhm.
just one thing.
Mhm.
So go
It's
ahead. Sorry, I'm really curious as to what you're
that's why I feel like sometimes I feel like I'm two separate people. My work persona and my personal persona. The relationships that I find most rewarding are the ones that are most vulnerable. And so why
saying.
wouldn't I say to myself, I'm talking to myself into like, why wouldn't I want more of that in my life? Right.
Right.
Um, so that was just in terms of process. You asked me about the process, just getting myself okay with, okay, I'm letting the curtain up, and showing everybody behind the scenes of Betsy.
Right.
It took,
Right.
it took a while. And then when I was in terms of process and writing, so in this exploration, I do a lot of journaling. I journal. I've journaled since I was a little girl. And so when I saw this theme and the stories, um, I I had it in my head. It was funny because I had the format in my I knew I wanted to say I had the format, but I didn't want it to be like a memoir where I was born here and it's just a progression of my life. And then I read, and I struggled for a couple of years. Like it's in my head. I know it's going to be birthed at some time, but I don't know when. Then I read Glennon Doyle's book, Untamed.
Mm.
I listened to it. Actually, I run in the mornings and I was listening to it. And when I heard that book on Audible, I was like, oh my gosh, that is the format that I had been searching for the type of book I wanted to write. And it's a very different kind of book. It's
Mm.
short stories. It's somewhat in a linear progression, but not always. And I loved it because it was that in and of itself was out of its box.
Mm.
And so it was funny because when I had a writing pod and when you start writing, I was encouraged, and I'm glad I did. I got into a writing pod, and they help critique the book and help you make it more clear. And one of the first things, my goal in writing the book was to change one person's life. If
Mm.
one person's life is changed by something they read, it will have been worth it to me.
Mm.
And so my very first writing pod, I get on the Zoom call, and these are all experienced writers. I'm very intimidated. And one of the more experienced writers says to me, Betsy, why aren't you capitalizing your table of contents? Because each title in the table of contents was lowercase. And I said, oh my gosh, what a great question. Let me ask you first, why are you asking me that? And she said, well, you always see the table of contents capitalized. And I said, that's exactly why I didn't capitalize them.
Mm.
I want people to, and myself, I'm talking to myself, stop accepting the status quo or the norm or questioning it. And is this right for me? And is this the right feeling for me? Is this projecting the right message that I want to project? And so what if it's not the way you see most books, And
Mm.
so getting out of the box of what a book even looks like. In fact, I had a interesting, she was a book medium, a channeling session with a book medium because
Oh my goodness.
I met her this is a incredible conference of incredible entrepreneurs all across the country. I go there for the first time, and I'm at the breakfast table with this woman, and I'm like, what do you do? And she said, I channel books. And I had just started writing my book. And I'm like, okay, this is
Like, thank you, God. I
right,
see the signs.
exactly. Like, you had me at channeling. And
Right.
so a week later, I'm on a Zoom call with her, and I actually write about it in this book because I had about 70 pages of my book done. And she's like, tell me where you're at. And so I told her, I said, I got 70 pages done. I got to get to 200. It's stories. It's, kind of a before, during, and after. And I feel stuck. And she's like this. She's like, time out. And I'm like, what? She said, you're writing, you're thinking about a book that's in a box. She said, take those expectations out. What a book to you could be totally different than a book to somebody else. Maybe it has coloring pages in it. Maybe it's 75 pages because that's where your stories end. She said, maybe it's on giant poster board. Maybe it's a tiny little book. Don't put yourself, I was thinking of, this traditional book is 200 pages, Times Roman numeral, just the traditional book. And so it was just very enlightening for her to give me permission to even take, and I felt actually it was so ironic. Here I am writing about getting out of boxes, and I'm putting myself in a box writing the book. So,
Isn't that a God wink if you've ever heard one?
yes, yes, yeah. So
Oh, I love that. I love that. And so what did that, I mean, just from a practical standpoint too, did you block out time like once a week to write the book?
yeah.
How did you kind of get into the creative space for that?
Well, what I've learned is that people do things in various different ways, whatever kind of works for them and their creativity. I have most energy and creativity from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. I mean,
Mhm.
after 3 p.m., I'm kind of done working. I've always been a morning person, very much a morning person. I get up very early. So for me, I got into the practice. It was just an hour a day. And that's why it took me a year to write.
Mhm.
But an hour a day, I thought I can do an hour a day, 5 days a week. And I did that until I was done. And
Mm.
it was lovely. I mean, the time flew by. I realized, that when you're in your flow, Um, and when you're doing things that speak to your heart, the time just goes. And so I did that for a year, and then I hired a developmental editor who helps you make sure that it makes sense and your stories flow. And then after that, I hired a copy editor that makes sure your syntax is correct.
Mhm.
And then I went the kind of like a hybrid publisher where they do a lot of it for you in terms of the back end formatting of the book and getting it up so that it's available at all the bookstores and on Amazon and things like that. But you retain all the rights to your book. That's what I
Yeah.
choose to do.
Yeah. Okay. That's helpful for anybody out there too that's
Yeah.
like thinking of writing a book or has the message within them to kind of help them understand some of the pieces of the process.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but, and, you know, I know that one of the things talks about getting unstuck. Like, how do you, if you're in that place, like, how do you kind of unstuck yourself?
Mhm.
Um, so what would that look like, or what kind of advice might you give somebody having been through that journey
Yeah.
to find more purpose? Because I
Mhm.
think a lot of people, I think it came out of COVID too, have been looking for purpose, right? But that's a big word.
Mhm.
And I think that I think maybe also what it could be is just more fulfillment, more
Mhm.
joy,
Mhm.
and purpose may be aligned in there.
Yeah.
But what would, having been through that, what would that look like?
Well, a funny story. I took a class at church once where they kind of type you into different, it's like a Myers-Briggs or a disc profile. But this was a different one where you were assigned a country with a flag, and you could be in the country of control or the country of a variety of different things. Anyway, I was in the country of control.
Uh,
No surprise.
I relate to that. I relate to that.
What I was shocked about is, they kind of rank the countries. My very last country, the lowest country that I was in, was the fun country, and I had zero in the fun country. So I asked the guy, the facilitator, I said, "Can I take the test again?" There's no way that that's zero. I take the test again, it's zero again. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is crazy." And so what astounded me was he divided us up, and then we were paired with people who had fun as their primary flag. So I was paired with this woman who I'm still friends with to this day. She wakes up every morning. Her first question to herself is, "How am I going to have fun today?" I was
Mm,
like, "Oh my gosh, that was such a mind shift for me." Prior to meeting her, I had never ever asked myself that question in a day. Like that wasn't. I had other values emulated for me in my childhood, but fun was not a priority. I mean, we had fun occasionally, but it wasn't a priority. And so from that time on, and that was years ago, I mean, I literally put it on my calendar. I have to plan fun because it doesn't happen spontaneously for me.
mhm,
The way I was born, raised, whatever, I have to make it intentional. Um, but in terms of getting unstuck and finding purpose, I found it so interesting. I spent so much time in my businesses on vision, mission, core values. And we talk about it all the time in my companies. We live by them. But how many times or how often do you see people then going home and deciding what are their family's core values? Or what are their core values? What's their mission statement? It's such a disconnect because that's to me so much more important. Yet it's not emphasized in our culture to do that in our family life. And it's like, why? So
mm,
one of the things we do at the company is in our brokerage is we do the Wheel of Life exercise every year with staff and agents where you have the wheel, figure out, a healthy life, generally 6 to 8 life pillars. Career is just one of them. And maybe it's spirituality for people. Maybe it's contribution and giving back. Maybe it's growth. Maybe it's your health. Maybe it's your finances. Usually I think once you get over 6 to 8, your life becomes a little overwhelming. But if you have too few, like I did when I got divorced when I was 32. My girls were 1 and 2 years old, and at that time in my life pillars were my work, my marriage, and my kids. And two of the three life pillars disappeared in a very short period of time. And when you're sitting on a three-legged stool and two of the legs go out, you fall on the floor. And I did. And I just didn't have a well-balanced life. And I'm like, I am not ever going to find myself in that situation again. Um, so that's a suggestion, is to be very intentional about your life and where you spend your time. I go through at least once a day now, and it's not morbid at all. I think some people think it is. It's not at all. At least once a day, I say to myself, Betsy, this could be the last day that you're here. Are you living the day? Is this how you want your last day to be? And it really changes how you live your life, who you spend your time with, what you allow into your ears and your eyes, and it really does. And it's not morbid. It's very inspiring and encouraging for me to remind myself that it truly could be we don't know, this could truly be my last day. And just making sure that I'm spending it in the way that I want to spend it. Another thing for me personally, and something that I had struggled with, and it's still a work in progress, is one, recognizing that I'm in a box, that I am uncomfortable, and that this doesn't have to be my normal.
Mhm.
I remember driving by when I first started prior to first seeing a chiropractor, I drove by his sign numerous times, and it said, pain is an option. And I was like, oh, I had been living with back pain for years. I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't realize that was an option. So I started seeing the chiropractor. My pain went away. So just recognizing that you are in discomfort, and that doesn't have to be your norm. And then for me, it's a practice of moving and making my decisions, moving towards that which feels good. Very simple. Just moving towards, does that make me feel lighter? Does that make me feel fuller? Do I feel happy inside, joyful inside, moving towards path A versus path B? That wasn't something that I consciously asked myself a lot prior to this journey, and making sure that my decisions are based out of love and not fear. A lot of my decisions in the past had been based on fear. So it could have been fear of loss of a relationship, whether it's platonic or romantic relationship, or fear of loss of financial security. And I try very hard now. I do not make decisions based on fear. That does not serve me personally well.
Mm. I've just been like writing away at a lot of the things that you've been saying. So I'm going to draw out some of the things that I thought were so good. How do I have fun today? To be honest, I don't know that I wake up with that,
Hmm.
because you're so right. We, especially business owners, entrepreneurs, I think a lot of us are thinking, okay, how do we move the business? How do we move but it's so focused on that sometimes like it's creating balance.
Hmm.
And yes, we have goals, especially type O personalities,
Yeah.
goals, dreams, vision, but it, how do you also make sure that you're moving in joy, moving in fun, and giving yourself permission to
Hmm.
have fun
Hmm.
and to incorporate that in?
Hmm.
The other thing I thought was interesting that we were talking about is your values with your family. I
Hmm.
was at a conference a few years back, and one of the speakers was talking about his kid, that they have a mission statement and with their family and for their family, and they have the core values for their family. And he actually had his kids who happened to be there at the conference as well, go up and repeat them. I mean,
Hmm.
they and really, to create something like that with your family. And it's funny, I wrote down to my husband and I, we were going to go, we were going to do the same thing, and do you know what? We haven't.
Hmm.
So this is that kind of reminder coming back
Yeah.
to, gosh, yeah, I mean, of course it makes sense to have core values as a family, because we kind of know them, but like, do our kids really know
Yeah.
where
Right.
we're coming from through it all?
Right.
And then creating that foundation
Right.
while your kids are little, allows you to probably get into tougher conversations and reference those back when
Right.
they're older.
Exactly. It's so true. I mean, my kids are older now, and I wish I had done that. And I think it would have
Mhm.
also made, especially as they get older, because your decisions are based on your values, and so it makes it very clear if they know their values. It will make it very clear why made you as an adult and parent made the decision you did because your family is aligned with these core values.
Yes, I love that. I love that. And then, I think you mentioned it a few times, but really moving with intention and being very intentional about what you want to create,
Yeah.
um, and moving towards the feeling good things.
Hmm.
Because I think also, and we talk a lot about on the show too, how do you kind of attract more things into being, attracting more opportunities or wealth or whatever it is that you want to create. And I think part of the journey is to move towards what brings joy, what brings fulfillment,
Right.
and then, create more of those experiences.
Hmm.
So the negative experiences are just meant to be a contrast where you
Hmm.
can say, you know what, I don't want to create that again.
Right.
So I'm going to continue moving in this direction
Right.
because life is a series of choices.
Right.
And to your point, you don't have to choose pain. You
Right.
can choose
Right.
into joy,
Right.
especially when you become more conscious
Hmm.
that there's a numbing or that there's
Hmm. Right.
there's something more,
Right.
right? And then begins the quest
Right.
um for that.
For
Like what
sure.
does bring me joy?
Right.
What are the things that I enjoy doing? And probably a series of testing out different things to
Yeah.
know what
Yeah.
those look like, right?
Yeah. Have you read The
Um,
Artist's Way?
I
Julia.
have.
Yeah. She talks about the artist walk, or I think it's called the artist walk or something, where once a week you plan something a little bit larger that takes like half a day. It's truly joy for you. I do a daily tracker where I always have habits I'm working on, and so it's a really simple grid. I literally put a little dot if I've done the thing or not that day, and usually I pick 10 to 12 that I work on for the month, and then they'll carry on for the next month until it becomes ingrained in my life. It's amazing what just being able to put a little dot, how motivating can be.
Yes.
But one of the things I put on there month after month is, did I have fun today? And that's really nice because it's a daily reminder that to make that a priority for myself. If I don't
Mm,
write it down and plan it, it just doesn't happen. The other
yeah.
thing you mentioned about moving towards moving towards away from negative experiences, so true. And something that's helped me is even just reframing those. So like in our business at the brokerage, um, we have our Tuesday morning meetings. We all come in and we all share our learnings for the week. And learnings in maybe other brokerages would be, major mistakes, things we should have known, things like that. But we they're truly learnings. You learn it once, you share it with everybody, and it's my most favorite part of the meeting, and it's the part of the meeting that agents come to me and say they love because they feel embraced and safe to share that they made a mistake, and then they share it with everybody so everybody else doesn't have to make that mistake again. And I share my own. I mean, still as a broker, I still make mistakes. We all make mistakes.
Right.
But reframing them into learnings, and something I truly believe in is that everything is happening for me, not to me, and that really helps reframe some things that may be uncomfortable at the time. um,
Mhm.
there's always a lesson. There's always something I can take from it, even if it's an experience that I wouldn't have chosen. It is truly making me a better person, and
Mm.
knowing that and being confident in that helps as we go through those experiences.
Oh, I love that mantra. I'm a big fan of just having daily mantras and things that you can because I think our mind can tune itself very quickly, like
Mhm.
to negative things. And so the more quickly we can rewire back to the
Mhm.
things that we want to be really intentional about,
Yeah.
I think we're better off. So I'm just curious, you just mentioned one of them that things are happening for you, not to you.
Mhm.
What are there any other mantras or affirmations or anything that you use or a daily practice that helps you instill that into your day?
So we have a quote wall on in our brokerage, and everybody submitted their quotes, like things like that. And at the time, we did this about 10 years ago. My quote is just one word, and and it can be taken the wrong way, but the way I meant it is, so it's one word. It's next, and it was meant for um, don't dwell. I mean, this too shall pass. So, especially in real estate, I mean, we've got, I don't think people outside of real estate understand how emotionally draining the profession can be. And
Mhm.
it's not about us. It's about, people's, it's never about us. I mean, what we can only own ourselves. People's reaction to us is not about us. It's about them. And so that word next is just, that's just not even a mantra anymore. That's just who I am. It's always, what can I learn, discard everything else, and move on. Sometimes I visualize a curtain coming down. It's like, you know what, or it's, I'm not going to allow it to have free rent in my head. The most valuable space that we own is the space between our ears. They are not, it's not taking up free rent in my brain.
Hmm.
The other thing I do, I'm more visual, but, in the profession is, and I tell my agents this is, just pretend like you have armor on, true armor. Like nobody is going to, don't let anybody impact your body, your physical body, your mental body, your spiritual body. That no one has the right to do that. So you've got, I always feel like I have this invisible but very strong armor on. So it doesn't matter. And again, I mean, I'm a work in progress. I haven't mastered this, but it helps where if somebody says something or something happens in my life where not, not what I was wanting, it really protects me and keeps me, safe and happy, and a healthy state of mind.
Hmm. I love that so much. I'm a big fan of visualizations as well, and just kind of because I think it helps us get there, the mind get there, right?
Yeah.
And so similar to you, I have a bubble that I surround myself in. And
Yeah.
it's like things just can bounce off the bubble, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes I realize I've let it in the bubble, and then I have to consciously
Yeah.
push it out.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, you're not supposed to be in here.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
pushing you out of my bubble. And so I think that, you know, in life, I think the entrepreneurial journey especially has this where there can be a series of, setbacks to get you closer, but everybody deals with that, right? Like
Mhm.
regardless of if you're an entrepreneur or business owner,
Yeah.
there are, we go through this life and it's how you choose to see it,
Mhm.
how you choose to see the experience. And to
Mhm.
your point, next.
Mhm. The other mantra, that's helped me is, if I'm dealing with something that I really, that I don't want to be dealing with, um, I say to myself, I get to do this, not I have to do this. And that totally changes how you go into a situation and how you view it. And so then it no longer becomes fearful of the outcome or, um, an unpleasant experience. You go into it, even though you may not have wanted the experience. It's like, I get to do this. What is this opportunity opening myself up to? And that's really helped me.
I love that. My goodness. Well, this has been such a treat. I feel, full disclosure, I was feeling a little bit, I've been a little bit sick. And so, coming in, I was a little fatigued, but
Oh,
talking to you, I feel so much lighter. I love this
okay.
conversation so much. And I'm super inspired, by you and just all that you're saying. It really resonates so much. And I have, to our listeners, I hope that you've been able to take some great takeaways from listening to Betsy and hearing her story and all that she has to offer, and especially the book coming out. I think you mentioned, was it September
September 23rd.
23rd? Okay, September 23rd. So, where can people find the book?
The book will be on, Amazon, in all major bookstores, big box stores like Target, and then as well as Audible if you want the excuse me, the audio version, and Kindle. Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay. And we'll put all of that in the show notes for all of you listening that want to get your hands on the book and get to know more about Betsy's story. And again, this has just been, such a treat to get to know you. I feel so inspired after listening to you and got some great takeaways. So thank you so much for your time and being here for our listeners and for the show. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Kara.
Loved being here with you today and would love to connect with you more over on Instagram. My handle is linked to the show notes, or you can just type in @Chaffin Donofrio. And I have something special for you as a free gift, my dynamic life journal. This special book has the power to really help you live a soul-inspired life. Go to freegiftfromkara.com. Easy to remember, freegiftfromkara.com. Until next time, beautiful people, sending all my love.